The late 1990s and early 2000s were a period of rapid change for the video game industry. The rise of 3D graphics accelerators gave developers the power to create richer, more detailed worlds, while broadband internet was beginning to make large-scale online play a reality. In the midst of this transformation, 2002's Battlefield 1942 became the game that showed just how far that first-person shooters could go. Developed by DICE, Battlefield 1942 didn't just offer another run and gun experience. It gave players sprawling battlefields where tanks, planes, ships, and infantry clashed in real time. Its combined arms design emphasized coordination over individual heroics, pushing teamwork to the forefront of the genre. For the first time, players could feel like a small part of a much larger war where communication and strategy mattered just as much as reflexes. Today, we're stepping back into those digital war zones to examine how Battlefield 1942 harnessed the technological momentum of its era, reshaped the expectations of multiplayer shooters, and laid the foundation for one of gaming's most enduring franchises. So grab your gear, rally your squad, and join us for today's trip down memory card lane. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope these words find you well. Hello and welcome to the 264th episode of our video game history podcast, A Trip Down Memory Card Lane. Each week, we'll tell you a story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game or the people who have created it. It can be about a console or the technology that brought it to life. We often talk about the companies that bring it all together, making our hobby video games a reality. While telling you each story, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. Today, we are storming the beaches with Battlefield 1942, the 2002 game that redefined multiplayer combat. With its massive maps, vehicular warfare, and team-based gameplay, it launched the Battlefield franchise and set the stage for modern online shooters. I'm David Casson, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, who'd probably crash a plane into his own team and call it a tactical innovation. He's my brother, Rob Casson. Rob, do you typically lead your squad to victory, or are you just spending all your time getting lost or killed on the map?
Well, I really think first we need to take a step back, Dave. I'm the good pilot here. You're the one who crashes. Don't let me make a certain video surface on the internet.
Wait, okay. So wouldn't that mean, though, that if you do crash your plane into the team, you can technically call it a tactical innovation because you're doing it on purpose?
I
I don't do
mean,
it on purpose.
I don't really know on that front, man. I just know you're the one who
Mm-hmm.
crashes planes.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna spin everything. Don't you know that's my job?
Well, you can't spin that I lead the squad to victory. Let's be real.
I
There's a reason
mean,
you make me the leader.
like once in a blue moon, I kill things. Like literally, wild blue yonder.
Fair enough.
Yep. I mean, someone's got to do it.
Get a kill once in a blue moon?
Yeah, that's how we win. Once in a wild blue yonder, a kill,
Yeah, not the guy who's putting down kills, aka Nick.
aka Nick. So not the first time we've ever discussed Battlefield on this podcast. In case you're a long time listener.
True.
And by long time listener, Rob, when's the last time we talked about Battlefield?
Back in our old format.
Literally episode 1.
Is that not our old format, Dave?
It is. You are absolutely right, technically. Yeah.
So 263 episodes ago, which means 263 weeks ago. For those
260,
counting at home, that's almost 5 years.
almost 5 years is the last time we talked about Battlefield. Rob is right, though. We did not have this format at the time. I think, God, I don't even remember what we talked about it with in any way, shape, or form. But since I am currently redesigning our website, I can find out really quickly. And the
Well,
answer
it
is...
probably would have been our first video
Wait,
game memory.
I was wrong. It was episode 2, not episode 1. Color me corrected.
Oh, so episode 262 weeks ago.
Yes.
Sorry.
So
Jeez.
I wrote in the notes Battlefield 1942 as an educational tool. If I remember correctly, I found a quote online where some dad said he uses it to teach his kids about World War II. And that's what we talked about.
Well, to be fair, I just referenced Operation Market Garden today because of the game.
Nice. That's a very classy reference.
And
Congratulations.
speaking of this week, the date of this episode release will be one day past the start of, I believe it is the 81st anniversary, 1941 or
40,
44,
44.
1944, September 17th through 25th.
There you go. That's a good
Boom.
history plug. Congratulations. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
who's teaching who now, bitches?
That's okay. Don't. Okay. All right. Speaking of you teaching people things, I have a story to tell all about Battlefield and how it laid the foundation for modern shooters. But before we get to said story, how about you share with our listeners what else has happened during the current week in gaming history?
All right, well, kicking it off on September 20th, 1996, Atlas released Revelations Persona for the PlayStation in Japan, marking the start of what would become one of the most acclaimed RPG series in the world. As a spin off of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, Persona combined traditional dungeon crawling with a modern day setting, where high school students summon aspects of their psyche, aka personas, to battle supernatural threats. Its mix of Jungian psychology, occult themes, and character driven storytelling set it apart from typical fantasy RPGs of the era. Though its localization in the West was heavily altered, Persona planted the seeds for a franchise that would later explode in popularity with entries like Persona 3, 4, and especially 5. Looking back, it's remarkable how much of the series' DNA was present in this modest but groundbreaking debut. And for those who want to learn more, we talked about this back in episode 212. So go listen if you want to learn.
They're really great games. I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I'm a big fan of the modern personas, so go check out the
Uh,
franchise.
yeah, they look fun. Never played them myself, but we've had our guest Colby on the or Colby has been a guest on our show a few times, and he's the reason that I know about Persona because
Mm-hmm.
he played it a lot when we were living together.
For good reason. Good games.
So absolutely. Next up for this week, on September 18th, 1997, Oddworld Inhabitants released Oddworld Abe's Odyssey for the PlayStation and PC. This cinematic platformer introduced players to the strange and captivating world of Oddworld, where they assume the role of Abe, a Madokan slave who discovers his employer's plans to turn his fellow workers into food.
Food.
Soylent Green, Dave.
Soylent
It's
Green
people.
indeed. Yep. Well, it's odd people.
Odyssey. Yeah.
Madokans. I don't remember.
Abe's Odyssey was praised for its unique art style, dark humor, and challenging gameplay, which combined stealth, puzzle solving, and precise platforming. The game's innovative mechanics, such as Abe's ability to communicate with other characters and possess enemies, added depth to the experience. Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey became a critical and commercial success, spawning sequels and establishing Oddworld as one of the most memorable and creative franchises of the late 1990s.
Weird game. You ever played Oddworld before?
I've not, but I have heard of it. So, another one that slipped past me. Wasn't really playing a whole lot of games in the late 1990s. I was 5.
You were two when that came out.
Well, yeah, but the late 90s, like at the
Okay.
absolute end of the 90s, I would have been like 4 turning 5.
True statement.
So, like, 2 to 4.5,
Okay.
4 3/4. I don't play a whole lot of games then.
Deal.
But something I can speak to is that on September 14th, 2001, Nintendo released the GameCube in Japan, a compact purple box with a built in handle that embraced simplicity and social play. Yes,
Sorry.
Dave?
I like the way I wrote that. I think it's hilarious way to
That
describe
it's a
the GameCube.
compact purple box with a built in handle?
Yep.
I mean, that is what the original GameCube was.
I know.
And then, got the yellow or the silver, or you could get
Mm-hmm.
custom skins for it. Like when Pokemon XD Gala Darkness came out, I got the Gala Darkness skin with it. Before that, I'm sure that I had the original Pokemon Coliseum skin. You could really trick those boys out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, launch for the GameCube was headlined by Luigi's Mansion, which put Mario's timid brother in the spotlight for the first time and quickly built a reputation for couch friendly multiplayer experiences. Though it did struggle against Sony's juggernaut PlayStation 2 in sales, the GameCube carved out a loyal fan base thanks to a stellar first party lineup that included Metroid Prime, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and the tournament staple Super Smash Bros. Melee. Today, it's remembered as the quirky little cube that may or may not have won its generation, but still delivered some of Nintendo's most beloved adventures, and controllers that are still used to this day in competitive Smash, even for the newest edition.
That's a fact. Those wave birds.
No, not even the Wavebirds. I'm talking the original GameCube controller, none of the extra fancies.
Interesting.
They are just as used in the competitive scene now as they were back then. Sure, some people can use the Pro controllers. Some may be crazy enough to use the Joy-Cons, but majority of people that still play competitively are using the Nintendo GameCube controllers. Sure, they might be the new versions of them, but they're exactly the same. So, the GameCube just still living to this day.
That's entirely true.
Next up, another close to the heart game. Back in September 16th, 2003, Vivendi released The Simpsons Hit and Run for the PlayStation 2 in North America, handing fans what was essentially Springfield's take on Grand Theft Auto. Players could cruise the streets, tackle mission based objectives, and stumble across countless nods to the show's decades of humor, all wrapped in a family friendly package. While its structure mirrored GTA's open world chaos, the game stood out for how faithfully it captured the tone of the series, with character voices to the endless stream of inside jokes. Critics praised its balance of parody and playability, and fans embraced it as more than just a novelty. 2 decades later, Hit and Run still holds a cult following and is widely considered the golden standard of Simpsons video games.
You love that game.
Oh, me and our sister
That's why I
love the shit out
picked.
of that game.
I never really played much of it, to be honest with you, but I
It
picked
was
it
like
because I know you
Crazy
loved it.
Taxi, but Simpsons, Dave.
Right.
I mean, come on. How can you go wrong with Crazy Taxi, a game that we've talked about on this show before? Such an iconic game, that style, but with The Simpsons, a family that's been beloved since the 90s. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the great combination of two things. And, even to this day, it's something that needs to be brought back.
You're probably right about that.
I
Remember
agree,
that one
Olive.
guy? Remember that one guy started to kind of do it during COVID, but he
I
could.
do.
Yeah,
It's really
modernized
bumful that
it.
he didn't get it done. All right, and last up for this week in gaming history, on September 17th, 2004, LucasArts released Star Wars Battlefront for PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC. This highly anticipated game allowed players to experience large-scale battles set in the iconic Star Wars universe, offering both single-player and multiplayer modes. Battlefront featured massive combat scenarios where players could choose to fight for the Galactic Empire, the Rebel Alliance, the Republic, or the Separatists across various planets from the films. The game was praised for its immersive gameplay, extensive use of Star Wars settings and characters, and the ability to control vehicles and heroes in battle. Star Wars Battlefront became an instant hit, establishing itself as a beloved franchise and paving the way for future entries in the series.
Also, a game you like a whole lot.
Let's be real. Battlefront 2 is way better than the original. Just putting it out there. And I do mean the 2000 early 2000s Battlefront 2, not the 2020s remake of Battlefront 2. It's gotten better. I'll give it that. It's gotten a lot better since the launch. But that classic Battlefront 2, the Conquest mode, single player Conquest, Galactic Conquest, it was fantastic, man.
I know you loved it.
I did. I spent probably 100 hours playing that, and for a game back in those days, that's saying something. But I don't think people are here to listen about Star Wars Battlefront, Dave. I think there's another large scale multiplayer based war game. So let's have it.
Right before we can dive into Battlefield 1942, I think that per usual that we need to rewind to the roots of the companies that are behind it because you may not know anything about the companies behind it. We actually haven't had an opportunity to talk about these companies before. We haven't really had a reason to.
Really?
Yes.
I find that shocking.
Digital Illusions, or DICE as it's now called, was originally started in May of 1992 by four friends who decided that they didn't want summer jobs doing the typical summer jobs thing, right? They didn't want to paint fences or do yard work, no municipal work, no, being on the side of the highway picking up things, they wanted to make a game. That was how they saw themselves spending their summer vacation instead of doing all the boring stuff.
Well, what did we do wrong with our summer life, Dave?
True statement. So these four guys, Olaf Ali Gustafsson, Marcus Nystrom, Frederick Lilligren, and Andreas Axelsson, they were four members of the Amiga demo group. There's that word again. The Silence.
What word?
The demo group. We've talked about the demo scene before.
Oh, the demo scene. Yeah, but I don't know about the demo group.
Well, demo groups are members of the demo scene.
Oh, this is getting too confusing, Dave. Next up, you're gonna have like a Demogorgon.
That was a good joke you lined up. I'm gonna allow it.
Hell yeah.
It's funny that their demo group name was the Silence because they were probably anything but, right?
Well, that I mean, it's the silence, but like, the first when I heard that, I definitely thought of the Doctor Who silence, and that's
Ooh,
why no one remembered him.
that's a good
Just
one.
lining me up, Dave.
So, while attending university, they launched Digital Illusions and quickly got to work making pinball games for the Amiga. I don't know why pinball games, but the breakout title was Pinball Dreams in 1992, which impressed players with smooth scrolling, realistic ball physics, and colorful tables. It was followed by Pinball Fantasy shortly thereafter and Pinball Illusions in 1995, kind of cementing their reputations as masters of the digital pinball genre. But beyond pinball, DICE experimented with other genres throughout the 90s. They created a puzzle platformer called Benefactor in 1994. It was gameplay very similar to the Lemmings, which we've done a whole episode for. The Lemmings, very interestingly, made by the same studio that eventually made Grand Theft Auto. Weird little fact.
I always forget that fact.
I know, DMA Design did not start out there, Okay, cool. They made the futuristic racing title Motorhead in 1998. They got into rally racing in 1999 with Michelin Rally Masters. And they even helped develop the PlayStation version of the first game in the NASCAR Heat series. These early titles built DICE's reputation for technical polish and attention to detail. At the same time, there was another small Swedish studio named Refraction Games that was building something completely different. Refraction was founded in 1998 by Johan Persson and Patrick Soderlund, and Refraction as a studio had been working on an engine, what was they called the Refraction engines, starting in about 1993. And the Refraction engine focused on outdoor virtual environments that kind of emphasized player freedom and responsive feedback. That was how they sold it to people. But as they worked through this early on, they were also producing small racing games. Their breakout was called Volvo V70 Racing. It was a promotional game that was built in under a month to showcase Volvo's what else but V70 car line. And that was distributed heavily by Volvo, so they had that backing, which allowed it to sell 250,000 copies worldwide. And that kind of helped the studio get established in a lot of ways. In 1998, they also worked on Horse and Pony 2.
Oh, that's one of my favorites, Dave. I love Horse and Pony too.
I know, a children's horseback riding game that was published by Take Two Interactive. It's a bestseller in Scandinavia.
That's fitting.
It was even nominated for a Europrix award, right?
What's that?
That's exactly right. No clue. We've never said it before. So with a few kind of early successes under their belt, Refraction decided that they wanted to go into their own IP, right? Their most notable and ambitious effort was a game called Codename Eagle, which is an alternate history World War I action adventure game. Codename Eagle kind of stood out for expansive environments and unprecedented freedom. Players could fight on foot, They could commandeer vehicles or take to the skies, all within the same level. Sound familiar?
I can't say that it does, Dave. But maybe more will be revealed as we talk more.
Well, the story of Codename Eagle was definitely criticized. Its multiplayer mode gained a small cult following, which Refraction actively supported with patches and new content. And a lot of player support. There's an anecdote where they didn't have a lot of money at the end of the game, and there were people that were excited for the game that really wanted it to push, and so they actually sent pizza to the studio to feed the team as they made this game. So after Codename Eagle, Refraction briefly returned to horse riding sims with a game called The Legacy of Rosemont Hill, but there was a bigger project on the horizon, and that's the seed of our topic today. What would become the next project? Codename Eagle hint it hinted at the possibilities of a broader first person shooter market that hadn't embraced. Like Codename Eagle kind of said, okay, look, there's all this expansive environments with people and vehicles and planes, and no one else is really doing that. So I think it's important at this point to kind of talk where the shooter market was at this time, right?
Well, where was it, Dave?
Well, by the late '90s into the early 2000s, first-person shooters had kind of split clearly into two camps, right? On one side, there were these cinematic story-driven games like Half-Life in 1998. Medal of Honor Allied Assault came out in 2002, but that would have been at the tail end of between 99 and 2000 alone. Medal of Honor series pushed out five different releases, right? There were three main games, the one expansion, and like a spin-off prequel. So they were kind of dominating that World War II single player space, you know?
Damn straight they were.
On the other side of the first person shooter market, there were the fast paced multiplayer arenas. You have your Quake 3 Arena, you have your Unreal Tournament, which is 99. They were all these games that focused on small maps and twitch reflexes. Not to mention Counter Strike. Counter Strike began as a Half Life mod in 1999. And so as we went into the new millennium, that was quickly becoming a phenomenon that showed the appeal of competitive online gaming, right? But it kept its scale really tight with with its small team-based teams. So it's also important to remember that at the end of the 90s too, that broadband was really growing. Broadband really started to get introduced to all of our homes. I think we got it in 95 if I remember correctly, maybe a year sooner. But that was a new thing. So broadband at the turn of the millennium was really becoming a thing. So as broadband was growing, so too was online play. So this was all expanding. But despite this, the shooters were kind of keeping their scope modest, like Counter Strike. Um, Vehicle combat, for instance, was usually relegated to separate genres like racing games. Flight sims would have the flying. There was really nothing out there before Codename Eagle per se that was integrating all these concepts into one battlefield. So, against all of this going on, the idea of a game that combined infantry with tanks, planes, and ships on giant sprawling maps with dozens of players was really radical, right? I mean, all these games, Counter Strike has what, 6-on-6 teams, if I remember correctly?
Either 6-on-6 or 5-on-5. I don't really know. I didn't play Counter Strike.
Quake, Arena, and Unreal were not much more 12-on-12. If I remember serving correctly, maybe they got up to 32 at one point, but they're not. We're not talking large scale online multiplayer in any way, shape, or form. That idea that you could have this big sprawling map with all these different things to do, it didn't really fit into either of these camps, right? It wasn't a cinematic single player model, nor was it an arena style multiplayer formula. So the
Right.
point is that I stumbled on to lead into this segment was that there was definitely room in the market for something different. And Refraction recognized this as they gathered feedback from the multiplayer mode in Codename Eagle. The idea for Battlefield had actually been conceived from this notion, with Refraction looking to follow up their ambitious but flawed previous game in Codename Eagle. That game introduced the dream of combined arms multiplayer, but its scope was limited because under pressure from Take-Two, their publisher, the team kind of had to bolt and focus on the single player campaign. So with limited resources, that dragged focus away from the multiplayer, which in all reality had promise but shipped really buggy and unfinished. And so the game got lukewarm reviews. But despite that, the multiplayer developed a cult following and sold nearly 300,000 copies. Fans started playing it on LANs, and they promoted patches and updates to the game, like I said, by sending pizzas to the development team, so they could, so they could, so they could do their thing. Right?
That sounds pretty awesome.
It was pretty awesome. The reality is that Codename Eagle was far from realistic. And the war that it depicted, despite being rooted in World War One, was purely a product of that team's imagination. As development progressed, the producer of that game, Gustafsson, said in a later interview, the team realized that the same frame could be used for a game set in World War II. And that gave us the impetus for Battlefield 1942, which we tried to produce a demo for at E3 in 1999, hoping to get a publishing deal. So for E3 in 1999, the team at Refraction added B-17 bombers, submarines, and even the battleship Bismarck to the game engine of Codename Eagle. But that left publishers unimpressed. So walking away from E3, that team was bitterly disappointed. Battlefield 1942 was considered too ambitious and we were too experienced, Gustafsson later said. We still believed in the game's potential. At this same time, DICE, Digital Illusions, was rapidly expanding during the IT boom, the internet boom of the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, and as a result, and their success, they were acquiring studios left and right. So in 2000, Refraction was purchased, and DICE welcomed them into their studio. So with that acquisition, DICE inherited the Battlefield project, the Refraction engine, and the Refraction team. And so DICE, up until this point, was a company that had been completely focused on pinball games and racing games, right? So inheriting a first person shooter of any scope was going to be a completely new direction for the company. Now, by the time this acquisition happened, E3 2000 was only a few months away. So a combined team of members from DICE and Refraction kind of rushed to prepare another demo. We decided that if we were ever going to make Battlefield 1942, we had to do it now, recalled Gustafsson. We got the new engine ready at the last minute. Although the graphics looked great, our demo was really bad because we couldn't move the vehicles in the game.
Like they wouldn't drive?
Like they were immobile. He said we used camera moves to mask the immobility of vehicles, which gave the impression that something was happening in the game. So instead of being able to move the vehicles, they moved the cameras in the demo to make it look like the vehicles were moving.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Once again, E3 2000, publishers passed. And that left the project in limbo while DICE moved on to other things like Rally Sport Challenge. Now, the year 2000 was described by Gustafsson as a painful year for the Battlefield team. The turning point for the project came in 2001 when Electronic Arts approached DICE with genuine interest. As it turns out, EA's quality control team had quietly been fans of Codename Eagle, and their enthusiasm over that game convinced executives at Electronic Arts that Battlefield 1942 had potential. And so EA offered to take on publishing of the game with DICE as the developer. And they accepted. Who's not going to want to take the backing of Electronic Arts, you know? So, with EA as now publisher, development on the game continued in earnest, led by a small team of just 14 people. Little fun note. Interestingly enough, Rob, before EA came on board, DICE was out there pitching Battlefield to everyone who would listen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they actually pitched Battlefield as a potential GameCube exclusive.
Oh wow, that's
According to former Nintendo of America employee Jeff Callies, who shared the story during Penny Arcade's second annual live podcast telethon for Child's Play, Nintendo initially loved the concept. However, the proposal never advanced because in 2000, as we know, Nintendo had no online strategy in place at the time.
yeah, that's fair.
So it's a no-go, and honestly a really small blip in this story, right? Because the truth of the matter is developers go and they'll pitch to anyone who listen. So Nintendo realistically was just one of several stops that DICE made while seeking a deal. But it's one of those what ifs, and I like what ifs. It's really fascinating to imagine what might have happened if Nintendo had used Battlefield as the foundation for its own online infrastructure. you know they
I don't think it would have done nearly as well on the GameCube.
No, but if they had used it as its backing, they might have adopted multiplayer sooner. Who knows?
I mean, mayhaps, but also Battlefield probably wouldn't be what it is today.
Very true. So the work being done on this game, now with EA's backing, built directly on the formula of Codename Eagle, expanding its little combined arms concept into a full World War II setting. So the team continued to build this concept on top of the Refractor engine. That's how Battlefield began to take shape. And the end result was a game that could support massive battles where infantry, tanks, ships, and planes all clashed on sprawling large maps. And this was a game that took the world by storm when it finally released on September 10th, 2002. Rob, one of the best parts of Battlefield wasn't just the firefights. It was the chaos you and your friends caused together. Like, remember when you strapped C4 to a Jeep and tried to launch it off a cliff?
Tried. Excuse you. That was a tactical explosion. We didn't win the match, but we definitely won the moment.
Exactly. Those wild stories that you make with your friends are what stick with you. And honestly, podcasting's not that different. It's about capturing those conversations and memories so you can share them with others.
But unlike ramming a tank into the side of a battleship, podcasting actually requires decent equipment, right?
Well, now with Zencaster lets you record high quality audio and video right in your browser. There's no complicated setups, no expensive gear. You can just log in, hit record, and bottle those Battlefield stories forever.
And I'm guessing it even cleans up the audio so I don't sound like I'm yelling over a bomber run.
Exactly. Zencaster's post production tools remove background noise, balance levels, and cut out awkward silences. So your show always sounds smooth, even if your stories are absolute chaos.
Cool. But once we've recorded the chaos, how do we get it out to everyone?
Well, that's the best part. Zencaster helps you distribute your podcast to all the major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. So your Battlefield stories, no matter where you're recording, whatever you're recording, they can reach the whole squad.
Nice. But where do our listeners go to turn their Battlefield nonsense into podcast gold?
Just head over to zencaster.com/pricing and use our offer code, all one word, memory card lane, and you can get 30% off the first month of any Zencaster paid plan. Whether you're recording serious history, like we do, or laughing at that time you torpedoed your own team's carrier, like we do, Zencaster makes it easy to capture the fun.
And now, let's get back to capturing the fun on the massive battlefields in our topic today.
When Battlefield finally hit store shelves, it quickly proves that its concept had been worth the struggle, right? By July of 2004, the game had sold more than 3 million copies worldwide. 680,000 of those came from the United States alone, generating for EA and DICE over $27 million in revenue. In Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, close to home for DICE, it was honored with a Gold Sales Award for surpassing 100,000 units. And that really showed that the appeal of massive online warfare crossed borders. In fact, by 2006, the entire Battlefield series had moved almost that 3 million units in the US alone.
Yeah, that ain't too bad.
That's a really strong side that they had a great foundation for a new franchise, right?
Oh yeah, I'd say so. That's a quite the number of sales.
Critics were just as enthusiastic. We look at Metacritic, it places the game just shy of universal acclaim. Reviewers celebrate the game's scope, its combined arms gameplay, and love the large scale multiplayer focus. Scott Onboard at GameStop memorably described it as a comic book version of World War II, while IGN echoed many players' thoughts, praising the multiplayer, but kind of bashed on the single bot player matches. To be fair, we all did that, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the bots were not good.
No. But the general consensus was very clear, right? Battlefield was a game best experienced with friends online. Meanwhile, the awards cabinets quickly filled up too. At the sixth annual Interactive Achievement Awards, now known as literally the DICE Awards, the game walked away with top honors: Game of the Year, Computer Game of the Year, Outstanding Innovation in Computer Gaming, and Online Gameplay of the Year. GameSpot called it the biggest surprise on PC for the year. Like, that's flattering, you know? Even years later, the recognition continued at a 2010 gala hosted by the Swedish Games Injury. Yes, Swedish Games Injury. Swedish games industry, Battlefield was named Sweden's Game of the Decade. That's not a bad. That's pretty high damn praise.
Yeah, I mean that's 10 years.
But I think it's important at this point to talk about. And Rob, feel free to jump in because I know you and I have a lot of personal anecdotes with this one. What really cements Battlefield 1942 in history was how it fundamentally reshaped expectations for online play. At a time when most shooters maxed out at 16 or 32 players, Battlefield managed to get 64 people all into the same place, all fighting at the same time over team based objectives, right?
Yeah, definitely, which
With,
was crazy.
it was nuts. With planes dogfighting above, tanks shelling from hills, infantry pushing across villages and beaches, it genuinely felt like all out warfare in a way that no other shooter had yet attempted up until that point in 2002. I I told this story in episode 2 because I distinctly remember where this came from. I had never heard about this game before the day I picked it up in a store. Like, it had never been on my radar. I didn't know what it was. I literally remember being in Target, and back then I was in college and I had limited budgets, so I would pick up one game here, one game there. And 2004, you didn't really have online stores yet, so we still bought most of our games primarily in stores, right? So I remember being in Target and picking up this box for Battlefield 1942, never having heard of it, and looking at it and seeing 32 versus 32, fly planes, crash tanks, large maps, play ships, right? It sounded like the coolest thing ever, and literally something I had never heard of before. I think first off, for me, the thought of being able to play on a map with 63 other people, that blew my mind when I saw that on the back of that box. I was like, no way. No freaking way, you know?
Oh yeah, that's an insane amount of players for the time. You like you said 16 or 32 normally and you're immediately boom 64. Like it's insane. Like even still nowadays, like 64 is a lot of people to be in the same lobby.
It is. It very much is. That scale was just unprecedented, and the likes of which we hadn't seen otherwise. And the scope of the game was big. 17 maps shipped with the game at launch. 17 maps.
I generally didn't remember there being 17, but that's cool.
Maybe there's not 17. Maybe I made a mistake. How many do you think there were?
I don't know, like 6. I don't remember, man. I just remember Operation Market Garden. That was my favorite one.
Right. Isn't that the one with the bridge that we used to do loop de
Yep,
loops?
dude, the bridge that we would try to land the bombers on.
All right, let's see. Operation Battle Axe, Operation Baytown, Battle for Salerno, Battle of the Bulge, Berlin, Bocage, Battle of Britain, Coral Sea,
Oh, yep,
Eagle's
Coral Sea.
Nest, El Alamein, Essen, Gazala, Gothic Line, Guadalcanal,
Yep.
Helen Dorn, Operation Husky, Invasion of the Philippines, Iwo Jima,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
uh, Kelby, Kabeli Airfield, Kharkov, Kursk, Liberation of Cayenne,
Ooh,
Operation
Kursk. Yep.
Market Garden, Battle of Midway,
Midway. Yep.
Mimo Case. I don't remember that one. I wonder what is this one. Is a map featured? Oh, that so it was 17, including the expansions, is what it is. That's why.
I was gonna say like I'm recognizing a few of them, but you had like every other one I didn't
Yeah,
recognize.
so it wasn't 17 maps that shipped with the game at launch. I went through this list and got that wrong. It was 17 games that eventually came out with it. Um, yeah, there were some like Operation Battle Axe in Berlin that emphasized like brutal ground combat, and then Iwo Jima showcased naval and air battles, right?
Oh, definitely. I remember that's where I learned to fly.
The demo map that so many of us liked was Wake Island. Do you remember Wake Island?
Oh, absolutely.
Wake
I
Island
think Wake Island
was
pushed on to more games.
it did. It definitely did. It was such a it was such a fan. There's definitely 17 maps in the first. I'm looking at launch maps. The base game featured a total of 17 maps, but this was later expanded to 22 through the expansions. Wow. Um
Shit.
yeah, that's crazy to think about. I
Guess we just
guess
always
we
pick the same maps.
I know I was going to say the same thing. It's cuz we always pick the same ones, right? Right?
Hey, we knew what we liked.
I'm staring right at them. There were 17 maps to begin with for sure. Wow. Vehicles were just as important as the maps themselves. They were bulky, sometimes awkward, but we were all endlessly creative with them, right? We discovered tactics like ramming ships together. We would ride on plane wings
Yep.
and park jeeps loaded with explosives next to objectives. That was my favorite. The blowing up jeeps was by far my favorite. Do you remember when we used to all see how far we could blow a jeep up? Do you remember that?
No, not so much that.
The goal was like load up as much explosives as you could with the jeep and drive it off a cliff, but explode it in midair so you could see how far you could fly the jeep across the map.
Yeah, I never did that.
Ugh, it was so much fun. I was away at college when this came out. I played this mostly with my group of college friends. We played a ton of Battlefield our first year because this would have come out our first year of college.
Yeah, but you did come home and have a LAN party, and that's where I got my first look into this one.
That is very true. We did bring it home and we played the heck out of it at home. That unpredictability was very much part of the charm, right? The game could be a serious World War II simulator at one moment, but slapstick chaos the next. And what that did was that birthed the community around Battlefield that was as unique all in itself. This was before YouTube was really a thing. So players would share stunt videos and streaks of their kill streaks, or clips of their kill streaks rather, through forums and file sharing sites. There were trips like the Loop Zook. That's the stunt where the pilot would bail from their plane mid dogfight, shoot a bazooka at an enemy aircraft, and then re-enter their own plane. We had tricks like those that are somewhere. I'm sure I did it once.
Oh, yeah, even in the modern games, it's still a thing.
Yeah, I remember doing it with the big ass bombers, trying to do it underneath that Market Garden Bridge.
Yeah, that's crazy there.
Battlefield wasn't just a game; it was a sandbox for creativity and comedy that really did help pioneer early like internet gaming culture. And then mods pushed that game even further, right? The most famous was Desert Combat. That swapped World War II assets for modern warfare, assault rifles, helicopter, and jets. Desert Combat, I've said this before, became so popular that the members of its team were hired by DICE and directly influenced future entries like Battlefield 2. There were mods like Forgotten Hope that doubled down on World War II realism, and Galactic Conquest that imagined Battlefield as a Star Wars game years before DICE got to officially touch that license. And altogether, all of these projects kind of kept the game alive well beyond its official support and really showed how flexible and robust the Battlefield framework and community could be. I think, though, it's most important to know that Battlefield 2042 wasn't just a commercial and critical hit. It was the foundation for pretty much everything that followed. Not only did it laid the gate for starters, it laid the groundwork for the Battlefield franchise. It established the series core identity, right? Large scale combined arms warfare that is fought across sprawling maps with teamwork at heart. Nearly every entry that came after, from Battlefield Vietnam to Battlefield 3 into the modern Battlefield 6, would refine or expand upon that template. And the technology from here carried forward as well. The Refractor engine, which powered Battlefield 1942, was the backbone of the series for a few more years, evolving into the Refractor 2 engine, which supported Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 2142. And then starting with Battlefield Bad Company and into Battlefield 3, they introduced the Frostbite engine. That would have been 2008. And that's been the engine since then. But even still, Frostbite carries the same spirit, right? It enables massive battles, destructible environments, and the kind of scale that Battlefield has been best known for. Ultimately, Battlefield proved, furthermore, that the industry was ready for shooters that went beyond the corridors and deathmatch arenas. It gave players the tools to create their own chaos and their own teamwork driven stories, and in doing so, it really changed what people expected from the first person shooting genre. That idea of large scale combined arms combat didn't just stay with Battlefield. Its influence quickly spread across the industry, encouraging other developers to experiment with scale, with vehicles, and team based emergent gameplay. And there were games like, Rob, we talked in our game, history today about Star Wars Battlefront that borrowed directly from Battlefield's blueprint. It had the same concept, sprawling battlefields with soldiers, planes, starfighters, and ground vehicles, right?
Yeah, very true.
And that the success of Desert Combat, the modern mod, and then Battlefield 2 really pointed the way towards modern military shooters that would explode in popularity with a similar concept. And so even franchises that had once been focused on tight arena style maps, like Call of Duty, for instance, eventually incorporated larger battle modes and more varied objectives, kind of echoing Battlefield's appeal. Over time, starting here, it caused the genre as a whole to shift. Players came to expect modes where strategy and scale mattered as much as reflexes, and persistent online communities grew up around these experiences. The concept of battlefield moments, unexpected, often hilarious stories born of player interaction, became more so a part of gaming culture itself. And while Battlefield 1942's identity was forged in all of these early maps, its legacy is now visible across an entire generation of shooters that chase the same feeling of epic player driven warfare. So, any favorite memories you have from Battlefield, like this one, other than doing the damn loops in the plane?
Honestly, that was the big one. It's just
Yeah.
anytime flying the bomber and just flying over the map and laying down hell.
I
That was always so much fun.
There was a video done to the song Click Click Boom. You know that song?
Yeah, saliva.
Yeah, Saliva, Click Click Boom. And every time like it would do Click Click Boom, it would be another Jeep exploding across the map because people got really, I mean, I'm telling you should watch it. Impressively big explosions across the map. You know, what's the best angle we can find on this cliff to get it to propel at just the right angle, and how many explosives can we put on it, you know? I remember a video on that. So when I say early gaming culture, some of the earliest videos that really were that like gaming showcase. Like, here's the thing I do. Now we can go on TikTok and we get it all day, every day, right? Or Instagram or Snap or wherever you get your stuff. Wow, I felt old calling Snap a social media, but you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it is though.
Yeah, but you don't go. I guess you go on there for content, but not the same as Instagram or TikTok.
That's fair.
Nowadays you go on there, but back then we didn't have that. I mean, YouTube was really brand new, and you could go on there and watch these videos where people were just learning how to put music to it. I don't even know how we captured the game. Like, we were just learning how to do video capture from our video games back then. We didn't have like it was all brand new, right? We had to get programs and learn how to use programs to do video capture, sometimes on different computers, to be fair. Like it was such a new thing that this game was part of, and it was so cool. It was just so cool. This is a really fascinating time period, a really fast time period, and Battlefield was a really important part of it.
Yeah, very true. I agree.
If Speaking of time period, if you would like to learn more about this period in time in which the first person shooting genre, as I said, was rapidly evolving, we've done plenty of other episodes on other games that came from this era. We did Medal of Honor in episode 9, Unreal in episode 38, and Halo at the tail end 2001 in episode 168. Of course, you can listen to these episodes anywhere you get your podcasts, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or you can listen to them on our website at www.memorycardlane.com. Rob, what else can people do on our website?
Well, you can find a calendar of our future episode topics, get an idea of what we'll be talking about in coming weeks. You can find a link to our Discord where you can come chat with Dave and I. Maybe tell us about when there's some weird audio glitches in our episodes, or just, whatever else you want to talk about. You can find links to our Patreon where you can help support us and get access to ad-free and unedited versions of all of our podcasts. And you can find links to social media where I am on several platforms as Rob_O_Raptor and Dave.
I can be found on various platforms as David is wrong. Speaking of audio glitches, it was brought to my attention recently, weeks after it happened, that we uploaded the wrong audio for a Paper Mario
Whoa,
episode.
whoa, whoa, whoa. He, not we.
I uploaded the wrong audio for the Paper Mario episode. So if you tried to listen to that, you got the previous episode, Secret of Mana. I apologize. We've been busy. I've been working on the new website design and a bunch of other things, and I missed it. It's fixed. So if you want to listen to the Paper Mario episode, delete the old one out of your podcast player, and your RSS feed will update with the new one, which is actually the Paper Mario episode, which was, I thought, a good episode. I'm now disappointed that more people didn't get to listen to it because it was a good episode, I thought.
Well, now they can, Dave.
Now they can. So go listen to Paper Mario, and thank you, Joel, for bringing that to my attention, even though I didn't notice it for 2 weeks because I'm a slacker.
And I'm bad at Discord. But don't let that steer you away from joining our server.
Each week, we'll tell you one story relevant to the current week in gaming history. It can be about a game, a console, a technology, a person. We've done a few places too. While telling you each story, we hope to teach you something new about the topic, what it took from the world as its inspiration, or what it gave back to the world in its legacy. When we sit down to outline new topics each week, I get excited when I get to learn new things, and I find even more excitement when I get to figure out how to bring them to you. It's a fantastic cycle of teaching and learning, learning and teaching. And in celebration of said cycle, we like to go round table and talk about our takeaways. So, Rob, what did you learn today?
Well, honestly, the craziest thing that you mentioned to me for this game had to have been that it was almost pitched for the GameCube, or was pitched for the GameCube and almost was an exclusive for that. That's mind-boggling to me.
That's valid.
Like, I just never would have even considered this game. Just made perfect sense on the PC, the movement and the large number of players and everything. To think that it was even considered for the GameCube is just like I can't wrap my head
Laughable.
around it.
It's laughable.
Yeah, I agree. So that would have to be my big takeaway. So what about yourself, Dave?
The fact that it wasn't a dice game, because it really wasn't a dice game.
Okay, that's fair.
I had never heard of Refraction Studios. I never had any reason to have heard of Refraction Studios, so that was a completely new studio. It's fascinating to me when I find new studios. I love it. I had no idea that this really wasn't a dice game. I mean, Refraction made this game. They started the concept in Codename Eagle and got positive feedback about a multiplayer mode that they didn't get to spend enough time on, and decided that their next game was going to be that multiplayer mode. And they fought and they worked through a studio acquisition and a lack of a publisher until someone finally did pick them up, and they got to release it. And all of that hard work, that, like, all that time going, we know we have a hit, we know we have a hit, we know we have a hit, it honestly paid off. It paid off. It's a great story when you step back and think about it.
Absolutely, Dave.
All right, Rob, well, before I wrap up this episode and take it into next week, is there anything you'd like to add to today's episode?
I'll just take a quick moment to say thank you so much to everyone for listening. Means the world to us to have you along as we learn about some of our favorite video games and related topics there within. So we hope that you enjoy, and we hope that you were able to gain some knowledge while we put it down.
As we step away from the digital battlefields of Battlefield 1942, it's impossible not to appreciate how much this one game reshaped this genre. By blending infantry, tanks, ships, and planes into massive online arenas, it created a living war front that few people thought was possible at the time. It proved that shooters could be more than tight corridors and tight reflexes. They could be sprawling sandboxes built on teamwork, chaos, and unforgettable moments. So, whether you're storming a beach, flying cover for your squad, or just laughing with friends after a spectacular crash, Battlefield 1942 reminds us that the best victories are the ones we share together. Next week, we are leaving the battlefields of Battlefield 1942 to soar into the stars with Wing Commander. Released in 1990, this iconic space simulator combines cinematic storytelling, thrilling dogfights, and branching narratives, immersing players in an epic conflict between humanity and the Kilrathi Empire. From its groundbreaking design to its influence on sci fi gaming, Wing Commander charted a course for the genre's future. Join us as we explore its history, innovation, and legacy on next week's interstellar trip down memory card lane. To think.
Do a 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 da 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 do da. Screw it up.